Andi je dala inge to ani ye nego tezu kunga ne say.
His Holiness said, remember that the best relationship is one in which your love for each other exceeds your need for each other. Respected Mr. Sonam Frasila, representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Councillor Norma Sement, Mayoress of Bishop's Roadford, Frederick Hyde Chambers, Head of Buddhist Chaplaincy and Council members of Tibet Society, Siring Chomala, Secretary of Office of Tibet, Tenzin Kungala, Campaign Manager of Office Tibet, Dr. Gela, Regional Director SFT UK, and all our supporters and friends of Tibet, and my dear friends. My name is Tenzin Kunga, and on behalf of Tibetan community in Britain, I welcome and thank you all for joining us to celebrate the 84th birthday of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama here in London. Dalai Lamas are believed to be manifestations of our Lokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion and the patron saint of Tibet. Mongol ruler Altan Khan first conferred the title Dalai Lama, or Ocean of Wisdom, in 1578 to the third Dalai Lama, son of Gyatso. His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama was born on 6th of July 1935 to a farming family in a small hamlet located in Tatsya Amdo, northeastern Tibet. The birth name of His Holiness is Namo Tengtuk until the age of 2, when he was recognized as the reincarnation of previous 13th Dalai Lama, Thupten Gyatso. In accordance with ancient custom, His Holiness forfeited his name Namo Tengtuk and assumed new name Jambe Mawan Lobsang Yeshe Tenzin Gyatso, or Tenzin Gyatso in short. His Holiness recalls his father was a man of very quick temper, yet a kind man too, and he never bore grudges. His Holiness also recalls his mother as undoubtedly one of the kindest people he has ever known. She gave birth to 16 children, of whom 7 survived. Therefore, His Holiness had 2 sisters and 4 brothers. During the winter of 1940, Namo Tengtuk was taken to the Potala Palace, where he was officially installed as the spiritual leader of Tibet. However, it was the unfortunate event at the eastern front of Tibet, when China invaded Tibet in September of 1949, which compelled the young Dalai Lama at the tender age of 15 to take political responsibility and officially enthroned as the temporal leader of Tibet on 17th of November 1950. In a ceremony held at Nobulinka, His Holiness's summer palace. His Holiness then began to receive his primary education. The curriculum derived from Nalanda tradition consisted of 5 major and 5 minor subjects: logic, Sanskrit, Buddhist philosophy including perfection of wisdom, the philosophy of middle way, metaphysics, to name a few. His Holiness sat and passed his final examination at 23 years of age at Lhasa's Chokhang Temple during the annual Great Prayer Festival, Mönam Chemo, in 1959, and was awarded the Geshe Larampa degree, equivalent to the highest doctorate in Buddhist philosophy. After the brutal suppression of Tibetan national uprising on 10th of March 1959 by the Chinese, His Holiness left Lhasa on 17th of March 1959 to seek asylum in India. On the first anniversary of Tibetan National Uprising Day on 10th of March 1960, His Holiness made a statement. I quote, "On this first occasion, I stressed the need for my people to take a long-term view of the situation in Tibet. For those of us in exile, I said that our priority must be resettlement and the continuity of our cultural traditions. As to the future, I stated that my belief that with truth, justice, and courage as our weapon, we Tibetans would eventually prevail in regaining freedom for Tibet. In exile, the Central Tibetan administration led by His Holiness appealed to the United Nations to consider the question of Tibet. The General Assembly adopted 3 resolutions on Tibet in 1959, 1961 and 1965. On 21st of September 1987, in an address to members of United States Congress in Washington, D.C., His Holiness proposed 5-point peace plan for Tibet as a first step towards a peaceful resolution of the worsening situation in Tibet. On 15th of June 1988, in an address to members of the European Parliament in Strasbourg, His Holiness further elaborated on the last point of the 5-point peace plan. He proposed talks between Chinese and Tibetans leading to a self-governing, democratic, political entity for all 3 provinces of Tibet. This entity would be in association with the People's Republic of China, and the Chinese government would continue to be responsible for Tibet's foreign policy and defense. His Holiness had tirelessly worked and continuously working for Tibet and the Tibetan people. We are very grateful and we thank you, His Holiness. Neither we had an Arab Spring nor a suffragette movement. Neither we had an Arab Spring nor a suffragette movement, but in 1963, His Holiness, the temporal and spiritual head of Tibet, voluntarily presented a draft democratic constitution for Tibet, followed by a number of reforms to democratize the Tibetan administration. The new democratic constitution was named the Charter of Tibetans in Exile. The charter enshrines freedom of speech, belief, assembly, and movement. In May 1990, as a result of His Holiness's reform, the Tibetan administration in exile was fully democratized. The Tibetan Cabinet Kashap, which until then had been appointed by His Holiness, was dissolved, along with the 10th Assembly of Tibetan People's Deputies, the Tibetan Parliament in exile. In the same year, exiled Tibetans living in India and more than 33 other countries elected 46 members of an expanded 11th Tibetan Assembly on a one-person, one-vote basis, ensuring women have the equal right as men. That assembly then elected the members of a new cabinet. In 1992, the Central Tibetan Administration published guidelines for the constitution of a future free Tibet. His Holiness has made clear his hopes that a future Tibet comprising of the 3 traditional provinces of Uyghur, Amdo and Kham will be federal and democratic. On September 2001, in further step towards democratization, the Tibetan electorate directly elected the Kalan Tripa, the chairman of the cabinet. The Kalan Tripa appointed his own cabinet, who then had to be approved by the Tibetan Assembly. This was the first time in Tibet's long history that the people had elected their political leaders. Since the direct election of Kalan Tripa, the custom by which the Dalai Lamas, through the institution of Gandhi Potang, have held temporal as well as spiritual authority in Tibet, has come to an end. On 14th of March 2011, His Holiness wrote to the Assembly of Tibetan People's Deputies, Tibetan Parliament in exile, requesting it to relieve him of temporal authority, since according to the Charter of Tibetans in Exile, he was technically still the head of the state. He announced that he was ending the custom by which the Dalai Lamas had wielded spiritual and political authority in Tibet. He intended, he made clear, to resume the status of the first 4 Dalai Lamas in concerning himself only with spiritual affairs. He confirmed that the democratically elected leadership would assume complete formal responsibility for Tibetan political affairs. The formal office of the household of Dalai Lamas, the Gandhi Potang, would henceforth only fulfill that function. On 29th of May 2011, His Holiness signed the document, formally transferring his temporal authority to the democratically elected leader. In so doing, he formally put an end to the 368-year-old tradition of the Dalai Lamas functioning as both spiritual and temporal head of Tibet. Without shedding a single drop of blood, we had been presented with the gift of democracy, We all are truly grateful to you, His Holiness. Thank you. Since the mid-1980s, His Holiness has engaged in a dialogue with modern scientists, mainly in the field of psychology, neurobiology, quantum physics, and cosmology. This had led to a historic collaboration between Buddhist monks and world-renowned scientists in trying to help individuals achieve peace of mind. It has also resulted in the addition of modern science to the traditional curriculum of Tibetan monastic institutions re-established in exile. His Holiness's effort and knowledge is recognized with many awards. The Nobel Peace Prize of 1989, the US Congressional Gold Medal in October 2007, Templeton Prize, May 2012, to name a few. Although His Holiness has described himself as retired now, but not only he is working continuously on his principal commitments, but added an additional commitment as well. Firstly, as a human being, His Holiness is concerned with encouraging people to be happy, helping them understand that if their minds are upset, mere physical comfort will not bring them peace. But if their minds are at peace, even physical pain will not disturb them. He advocates the cultivation of warm-heartedness and human values such as compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, contentment, and self-discipline. He says that as human beings, we are all the same, whether rich or poor, whether resident or refugee, whether man or women. We all want happiness and do not want suffering. His Holiness consistently emphasizes the need for people to connect with each other on a deeper human level, rather than getting caught up in the preconceptions based on superficial appearances. His Holiness regularly cautions us, allowing the divisive idea of us and them to flourish. He suggests that a solution to many of the problems we face in the world today is to remind ourselves that as human beings, we all are brothers and sisters, belonging to one human family, and that together we can take action to address the global challenges that confront us. Even people who have no religious belief can benefit if they incorporate these human values in their lives. His Holiness refers to such human values as secular ethics or universal values. This is something everyone has the chance to meet with him, recognizes and appreciates. For all his long life, His Holiness has opposed the objectification of women, has supported women and their rights, and celebrated the governing international consensus in support of gender equality and respect for women. Under his leadership, Tibetan nuns in exile have earned Geshe-ma degrees, indicating a high level of scholarship previously reserved only for male monks. The fruit of this effort was evident when we had the chance to attend the teaching by His Eminence Kyabje Ling Rinpoche. Our translator was Geshe-ma. His Holiness has frequently suggested that if we had more women leaders, the world would be more peaceful. Secondly, as a Buddhist monk, His Holiness is committed to encouraging harmony among the world's religious traditions. Despite philosophical differences between them, all major world religions have the same potential to create good human beings. It is therefore important for all religious traditions to respect one another and recognize the value of their respective traditions. The idea that there is one truth and one religion is relevant to the individual practitioner. However, with regard to the wider community, he says there is need to recognize that human beings observe several religions and several aspects of the truth. For this, His Holiness has held discussions with the heads of different religions and participated in many events promoting interreligious harmony and understanding. Inspired and encouraged by His Holiness, very recently, on 15th of June 2019, the Shia and Sunni Muslims from Ladakh had organized a conference in New Delhi focused on the theme celebrating diversity in the Muslim world, which His Holiness attended and addressed. Thirdly, His Holiness is a Tibetan, and as the Dalai Lama is the focus of Tibetan people's hope and trust. Therefore, he is committed to preserving Tibetan language and culture, the heritage Tibetan received from the Masters of India's Nalanda University, while also speaking up for the protection of Tibet's natural environment. In addition, His Holiness has lately spoken of his commitment to reviving awareness of the values of ancient Indian knowledge among the young Indians today. Since India has a long history of logic and reasoning, he is confident that its ancient knowledge, viewed from a secular academic perspective, can be combined with modern education. We feel blessed and very fortunate to be born at a time when His Holiness is on this earth and we can hear from him in person. We must make pledge at least to action one of his advice and guidance as a gift for His Holiness on his 84th birthday. Many, many happy returns of the day, His Holiness. May you live a long and healthy life for the benefit of all sentient beings, and may all your wishes and dreams come true. Thank you.